Butterfly Wings by It's Griffey, a dramatic reading. Beautifully blue and black. A 13-year-old Oculus lay across the unmade, messy bed in his unkempt room. Damp, stolen posters struck by lime green nymph goo on the whole walls, various items strewn across the floor for someone to trip over someday. He didn't mind it at all, though. If someone tripped over his belongings, he always saw it as being their fault for entering his domain. Well, that was what he referred to his room as. And that's just the way he saw it. Nothing more, nothing less. Well, unless one of his friends, which he barely had any, even bothered to set hoof in his house. Those were pretty much the only times he'd spiffy up his room, just a little. But in truth, there really wasn't much to spiffy up. Damn it, why the hell is it so hot in here? Oculus got up and opened his room window, letting the cool, moist air roll in and fill the room with its pure, windy bliss. Ock couldn't help it. It just made him calmer than what he would usually feel. Letting the breeze caress his face was like a refreshing reminder that there was better things out there, that he didn't have to spend all that time suffering in his room with all that hot air. But then other things started invading, and it was the aroma that really bothered him, those pesky emotions clogging up his receptors. Ever since the hive's reform, everything's been so different. Oculus always felt overwhelmed by the changes when he decided to give his love away and change for the better. Even so, his attitude sure didn't, especially toward himself. The delectable aroma of sweet, sugary joy filled the air, caressing Oculus's open receptors and causing him to flick his tongue in response. Pulsing warmth spread through his body, just enough to get him to loosen up a bit and reveal a sensitive part of his physical changes, his wings. As his electrons slowly lifted, the pair of hard, royal blue pieces of shell revealed a pair of thin, shimmering butterfly wings, with blue on the inner gossamer and black on the borders. Little flecks of white made it look like his wings were sparkling in the light, looking beautiful and elegant as ever. And then Oculus caught himself in the middle of his freedom, slamming his Electra shut and doing the same with his window. Bah, damn, can't those things give it a rest already? He sat down, turning on his neck so he could pat down his Electron and make sure they were secured properly. The thing the Oculus hated the most about moving into a new home was that it was right next to the place where the feeling swarm was designated. It infuriated him to open his window and have all those overwhelming flavors come and pester him the whole time. Sometimes he'd be led on by the sweet, rich, sweet saccharin of love and joy. Other times he'd be pushed into anger, and everyone knows how feelings can spread like wildfire. It made Oculus dread living where he was living. In conclusion, to escape the overpowered flavors of the many participants in the feelings swarm session, Oculus decided to leave the house and search for his friends. Maybe they'd want to hang out at some point in the day. It'd distract from his insecurities. And you're saying you don't like it? Pentagon asked as he hopped on his third or fourth log on the way to cross the lake. Oculus just sat on the base of the tree across from him, hooves folded behind his head as he nodded. Pentagon furrowed his brow. But why not? It's a feelings swarm. Just because you don't want to talk about the facts that you have a problem doesn't mean nobody else can. Oculus hopped, thunking his head on the trunk of a tree. Yeah, I know that, he replied to the cherry red nymph with a glare. I just wish we could have moved to some other area. You know, an area that isn't right next to the gay club. Pentagon gets caught off guard by the last statement, tripping on his front hose and falling into the lake. Oculus guffawed and pointed his hoof at the glaring Pentagon, who stared at him from his rather wet predicament in the water. His strawberry-pink mohawk dampened and hung off to the side, some of it even covering his eyes. You know, about the last thing you said, it ain't a gay club, Ock. Oculus gained back control of himself, his kicking hind legs from all of the excitement. Whoa, yeah, you got me there. If it were a gay club, you'd be there for 24/7. The light gray nymph continued to kick his legs up and down in joy and laughter, further annoying the other, and frankly much, much more red nymph in the lake. Pentagon steps out of the pond and sits next to Oculus, showing very well that he's annoyed, other than his screwed-up facial expression. You know, you're a real dick. At least I ain't the one sucking him. Pentagon huffs, leaning in and pecking Oculus on the cheek. Oculus grows pinker than the red-chitted nymph himself, and the latter rests his head on his shoulder. You're way more lovable when you're quiet. And there they sat until it only got darker in the evening time. The two fell asleep at the pond together, there against the very trunk of that tree. Hey, Oculus, Pentagon. The two woke up next to each other with an abrupt jolt awake. Pentagon looks a bit groggy from sleeping against the rough trunk of the tree compared to Oculus's soft chin. As the two look over yonder, they see a yellow changeling nymph with curly black gossamer hair and one horn on the front of his head. He also had black and gray electron with maroon wings underneath. His eyes were also a maroon color, and his name was Yo-Wasp. Oculus smiled, waving his hoofs that one of his other changeling friends could know where to run, although he looked like he was already right on the mark. Hey, what are you guys doing over here? I was looking for you guys all over the hive. The two teens blushed furiously, not knowing what to say to him that would be a good enough excuse, so they just let go of the subject, Pentagon taking up the topic from then on. Well, we were just kind of hanging out here, that's all, he lied. Wasp was a very gullible nymph, so anything anyone could tell him he'd believe easily, no alibi needed. Nearly every nymph in the hive knew that much. Still, Wasp continued, you guys want to hang out today? Murder Hornet wants to race. Ever since last week, she's been showing off her new wings. Gets on my nerves, but I guess it's good she likes the new changes. Pentagon looked at Oculus. Oculus looked very weary. He wasn't the most flighty nymph in the hive, mainly because, well, he thought his wings would be weird to look at. He couldn't imagine the kind of grief he'd get. A boy like him having butterfly wings? Think of the stories. The changeling boy with the wings of only a girl should have. What, did he go through some kind of birth accident? Why was he the way he was, anyway? What would everybody think? Oculus, do you want to come or no? Wasp asked. Wait, like with wings? And flight? He asked instead. Pentagon and Wasp looked at him like he was stupid, but of course Pentagon was the more straightforward of the two, so he was the one to speak up first. You're an idiot. What else are we going to race on, hooves? Oculus found his heart rate increasing, his anxiety beginning to take form inside him as he tried to come up with a good enough answer. Well, sure, you can. Do you guys know how much I walk all the time? No. This isn't good, he knows. He's getting really defensive right now. Wasp and Pentagon took a few steps back as Oculus looked like he was about to throw up or something. Wasp spoke up. Well, sure you walk a lot, Oculus, but you know, we just tend to fly more, and racing would be just a little bit more fun, practical, you know? Oculus lunges forward, pressing a hoof sharply on Wasp's chest and nearly knocking him over the way he loomed over him. Screw you and your practicality! Pentagon stepped in, pulling Wasp from the sticky situation. Whoa, man, chill out. You're scaring him. What the hell are you so pressed about? Oculus was breathing hard now. He didn't know what else to say. He was backed into a corner, all because he didn't like his stupid butterfly wings. It felt like the sky was crashing down on him. Dude, all he asked is if we wanted to race with him and Hornet. What's your problem? I don't have a problem. You're both just Oculus turned around and ran home, tears just barely catching the sauce from letting loose on the soil. And he ran, faster than his forelegs could carry him. And he would have been able to get home faster if he would just come to terms with who he really was. Oculus practically rammed the door open to his house, catching the attention of both his mother and father as he ran inside and slammed the door shut. His mother, Axilla, stepped down from her dishwashing position in the kitchen counter and turned around to a tight, warm embrace from her son. Surprised and concerned for Oculus, she hugged him back, opening her Electra and hovering over the couch, where she sat down and stroked his gossamer royal blue locks. Oculus, what's wrong? Oculus laid across the couch alongside Axilla, blinking away fresh tears. Mom, they're gonna make fun of me, aren't they? Axilla looked even more confused, but she still kept stroking her teenage son's blueberry bangs, looking down at him and watching him quiver. Honey, why would anybody make fun of you? Ain't it obvious, Ma? My wings, they're not the kind of wings I should. Axilla hushed her son with a hoof, planting a gentle kiss on his forehead as she continued to stroke his mane. There's nothing wrong with having wings like yours, Oculus. Those wings of yours, they help you stand out from the crowd because you're unique, son. Oculus sobbed into Axilla's carapace. But only girls have butterfly wings, Mom. And that was true. For as long as the changeling generations have been going on, there hasn't been any word of a male changeling having butterfly wings. It was only the females that had wings like that, if they turned out to be a butterfly-type changeling, that is. That was usually determined so they could use their wings to attract a mate or something like that. Oculus didn't want to accidentally attract a mate every time he opened up that shell of his. Everyone would think he was girly, and he wasn't girly, not by a long shot. Oculus looked up, thoughts racing around his head like the race he was probably missing out on at this very moment, but he couldn't think about that now. The way he made a fool of himself in front of two of his closest friends, he couldn't even bear to think about that incident again. Every time you think something like that, just let me remind you, honey, there's a first time for everything. There was a first time for love to be shared, remember? And there was a first time for me to fall in love with your father, right? Oculus nodded solemnly, not quite getting what his mother was getting at. So, then, there's a first time for a boy to have butterfly wings, baby. And all the kids in poke fun and joke, and the kid around you if they want. But in reality, they're just showing more and more how jealous they are of the beauty that you have in you. Axilla playfully poked Oculus in the chest, smiling down at him with the warmest, most supportive grin she could offer. I love you, Ma, he cried, hugging his mother tighter and tighter with each coming second. Axilla giggled. I love you too, honey. And that was it. Oculus woke up feeling peppier than usual the very next day, and today he had a plan to confront his friends and apologize for the way he'd been acting the other day. As he brushed his teeth and washed his face, he stared into the mirror, opening his elytra and exposing the black and blue butterfly wings he'd been harboring for so long. And today he was going to go out and own them. As he exited the house for the first time that day, he opened his elytra once again, allowing them to bask in the sunlight as they pulsed and quivered with overwhelming joy. Oculus had girl's wings, and he was proud of them.